All right, I am at the Oaks Card Club outside of Oakland, and I've never played here, but I'm told the action is good. Let's take a look. I teased that I'd be at a different location for vlog 129. I wonder how many people guessed the Oaks. It's got that kind of old, rundown California card room feel similar to Commerce. The structure? 3-5 with 2 on the button. And every player has an all-in button that they can just throw in, something that was instituted with COVID. I jump into that game while my buddy, who I just call B, and who would come with me on this trip, jumps into another. First hand comes when I raise queens early position, and the big blind's my only caller. I check back an ace-ace-jack flop, and the turn comes a queen. He leads out for 25, and I figured if he had an ace, I could play for stacks here, and I'm just going to raise right now to build this pot. I make it 105, and unfortunately for me, he folds pretty quickly. I then pick up pocket sevens and make about $40 more when the flop and turn checked through, and my $10 river value bet gets a couple of folds. I'm card dead for the next 45 minutes, but I pick up the queen-jack suited 2 hands in a row. Now, I pick up a couple of limps with it the first time, and then I call a $20 raise and get squeezed off of it by the last player in the game I wanted to play a hand against the second time. Then a debate over whether or not to institute a winner's straddle comes up. It doesn't get instituted, even though some guys still do it anyway. I wasn't picking up any hands, so I met up with my Serbian buddy Marco.
Marco from Trbuja.
This is his home room, and he insisted that as the sun went down, the quality of the game would go up. He would prove to be correct. Then I'm in the big blind with 9-10 off in a 4-way limped pot. With 20 in, the flop is 10-7 deuce rainbow. I bet 15, and under the gun plus 2 is my only caller. With 50 in, the turn is a jack. Now 8-9's gotten there, but I figure it's still going to be good enough to value bet. I make it 20, and he calls. So with 90 in, the river's a 5. No flush possibilities, and I check. He decides to bet 2/3 pot here. Now this opponent has been straddling a lot and seemed to be an action player. But obviously, I don't have much to go on, other than this felt like a straight or nothing. And I think he usually raises the turn with his straights here. So I call, giving us a $210 pot, and he mucks without making me show. We get a limp, and I have pocket sevens in the hijack and make it 20. The big blind and limper under the gun calls. The flop is 10-9-5, 2 diamonds, and it gets checked to me. I have to just check this one back here, and the turn is another 10. The big blind checks, and under the gun bets 30, and I thought this was close, but I opted to call, as the 10 was one of the best turn cards in the deck for me, I felt. With 120 in, the river is a queen, and he checks. I'm all too happy to check it back, and he shows 10-7 of diamonds, meaning that he had trips and a flush draw on the turn. Interesting. Then I pick up 10s under the gun and raise to 25. The cutoff is the same guy who I played that last hand against, and he calls. With 50 in, it comes 8-8-6 rainbow, and I bet 25 more. He calls. With 100 in, I was hoping for a blank, and I get one on the turn. The deuce of hearts. I make it 45, and he comes along. River's the 3 of diamonds. I figured it was a bet fold spot for me, as he is never going to value bet a weaker hand if I check to him. He's also not going to have many bluffs. Either he's calling me down with a lower pair, or he's been slow playing an 8 all along. So I quickly got my answer to which one of those two it probably was, as I bet 45, and he makes it 210, and I fold the hand. Then I pick up 10s again, and they continue to be the hand that I've had the worst luck of any with in 2021. And I ended up losing to a guy on a queen 6-4 deuce 6 board to a guy with the 6-5 offsuit. I finally wound up on the turn with a king high flush, but when I bet 35 into 55, I got an immediate fold. And at that point, I found myself missing the peppermill. I finally pick up aces, coming after a $30 raise. I make it 105, and he mucks. That game breaks, and I change tables. I still find myself unable to do much better than the Octo Crab. I do end up flopping a set of 6s on King 6-4, but only get $40 in value post-flop. Then we play a bomb pot, where I'm basically somewhere in the vicinity of 0 for 25 lifetime in them, and it, quickly became 0 for 26. I did manage to raise ace-10 pre-flop and take down the $120 four-way pot with a half-pot-sized bluff on a flop. I lose a few small pots and make one ill-advised bluff that doesn't work, which takes us to a hand where I open to 35 over a big blind straddle with my longtime favorite hand, pocket eights. Both blinds call, and with 100 in, the flop is king, jack, 8, 2 clubs. I figured this was the perfect spot for me to turn this session around. With 200 in, the turn is an offsuit queen, and he checks. I bet 100, and he makes the call. So with 400 in, the river is an offsuit 4, and now he bets out 200. I didn't think raising made a ton of sense here, though I'd listened to arguments about it. It just felt pretty polarized. So I just went ahead and tossed in the chips. He says good call as he missed his draw, showing jack 4 of clubs. And it was pretty clear, and Marco seemed to agree, that he had absolutely no clue that he had 2 pair. Then we get an early position raise to 45 over a straddle, and I have aces in the cutoff and make it 110. And he comes along. My struggles to get action seem to be coming to an end. With 220 in, it comes deuce, 3-5, 2 diamonds, and he checks. I bet 115, and he calls. So with 450 in, the turn's another 3. I bet 160, and he ends up laying it down. Makes me wonder what he had, as there are a lot of possibilities there. Then I call a $40 raise with pocket sixes on the button. With 80 in, we're heads up to queen, deuce, 6, giving me middle set on a rainbow board. He checks, and it wasn't exactly the polarized check situation that I talk about in 3-bet pots a lot, but it did kind of remind me of one in some ways. He only had about 300 left here, so I thought chances were that he was quite weak. I decided to just check back this rainbow board and slow play it. Turns the jack of clubs, and he checks again. Now I opt to bet 50, and he tosses in 50 of his own. The river comes another queen, filling me up. And now he decides to bet out. He makes it 100. I ask him how much he had left because his hands were blocking his chips. He ended up only having 150 behind, so I toss in my all-in button, which I'd been looking for an excuse to do. He says if I have a queen, I'm good. He calls and shows pocket aces. The clock strikes 12, which, unless the game is so crazy good off the rails, that's generally my cue to leave. So I rack up and end up snatching victory from what looked and felt all day like would be the jaws of defeat.
You always flop your set, man. Oh.
Yeah, how'd you do that?
It's all skill. All right, it is midnight, and I'm cashing out, booking a $645 win on a night that really, for the vast majority of it, I thought for sure I was booking a loss. Could not get action on my big hands, couldn't get many big hands, and just had a really pessimistic feeling about the session in general. So very happy with the way it ended there, as you saw, flopping a couple of timely sets at the very end. Thinking about having this trip be one that results in showcasing 2 casinos that I've never been to. And the second one will come your way next week. By the way, if you haven't already, hit the like and subscribe buttons. And if you want to play on Poker Bros, hit up my group. It's called High Society. There's a link in the description below, and use my referral code. All right, we started this a couple of vlogs ago, and we're going to try to get a question of the week in at the end of every vlog. By the way, if it sounded like in the previous clip and in this clip that I have a lisp, it's because I'm trying this whole Invisalign thing out. I went and saw the girlfriend/wife of a local poker pro who's a dentist, and she gave me a decent deal on them. I was told as a kid I didn't need braces. but I just thought it was something I could improve upon doing it for a couple of months. So that's why that is. I take them out to anchor the shows, by the way, if you're wondering. And by the way, if you are going to be a poker pro, that is my recommendation to you. Marry a dentist. You'll never have to worry about going back to work at that point. But as far as this week's question of the week, we have a question and a comment. Ryan Reed writes in, is there a capped buy-in for the Peppermill 05 game, and what seems to be the standard buy-in? I often get to use that line when people bring it up, and I just say, we don't do that shit here in Reno. No caps. There are on the 1-2 games, but not on the $5 game. Never been a cap. That's kind of a Reno staple, and it's awesome. Average buy-in, probably about 700. A lot of people buy in for only 2, some 5, many 1,000, some more. Then the comment that came in that was just great, and it got a lot of likes. Mysterious MM. Ben, I hit the bad beat jackpot. Audience, gotta be over 100 grand. Ben, just 5. Audience, our disappointment is immeasurable. Well, it's not as if, you don't pay for it if it gets to be that big. I don't like the bonus drop in the $5 blind structure. I think most players would agree that it's better to have $1 for every pot you've ever won as opposed to being eligible for these things. But if they're there, I think the Peppermill does fine with it. They do a great job of having like money giveaway days, like $100 giveaway every hour or so for like 10 hours. And those are good because they bring people in that wouldn't otherwise be in that day. And that's the goal, right? Because no one shows up because they have a chance to win $75 if they make quads. And you could argue that if they did a progressive bad beat to 100 grand, more people would come in, but I don't really think so. And even if that happens, one person then wins all that money, and then they go buy a boat or put it towards a house or something, and that's 100 grand out of the poker community. Whereas the way the Peppermill does it keeps that money in action with a lot more people. So, yeah, I mean, obviously I was part of the bad beat jackpot. Even if they had the, progressive, I wouldn't have won that because I was the guy that won the hand. But yeah, I don't have any problem with the way they do it at all. Hey, if you want to up your game, check out the best live poker training site on the internet, crushlivepoker.com. It's where I learn to hone my skills, watch one video, and listen to one podcast every week. It'll do it for you. You get 25% off for life on a basic or premium subscription just by using the promo code BenDeach. We'll see you next time from San Francisco.